None of the doctors could explain what was wrong with my brother. It wasn't unusual for Seth to hide out in his room for days on end, but by the third morning, my mother was worried enough to open the door. Seth lay on the bed, his wheelchair beside the bed, a cord running from his music mixing setup to the high-end headphones he always wore. It was like my older brother was just asleep and unable to wake up. They pronounced him comatose at the hospital. For my family, it was like losing Seth a second time. The first time was 10 years ago, when he was 13 and I was 11. I dared him to try the skateboarding trick I just landed, even though I knew he wasn't skilled enough to pull it off. I remember how time seemed to stop when he slipped off the board and rolled, how his legs disappeared beneath the wheels of the truck. That time, Seth didn't lose consciousness, although maybe it would have been better if he had. He just screamed, and screamed, and screamed. The accident changed his life. My cheerful, outgoing brother turned into a moody and bitter stranger overnight. He blamed the whole world for the loss of his legs, and me most of all. The worst part was, he was right. Whenever he'd throw one of his tantrums or lock himself in his room with his music, I'd notice this look in my parents' eyes. The kind that said, "We used to be such a happy family. This is all your fault." That's why I'm doing this. I have to believe that this time I can get my brother back. Seeing him there with a feeding tube in his throat, surrounded by beeping machines, I couldn't accept that these things sometimes just happen. There had to be another explanation. I snuck into my brother's bedroom that night. I hoped that the canned laughter from the TV downstairs would cover up the racket of drawers and cabinets as I sleuthed through his things. I was looking for needles, pills, anything that might explain the coma. When I came up empty-handed, I sat down on my older brother's messy bed and realized that music in his headphones was still playing. There was an open chat window on his computer as well. Deleted. Okay, here's the file. Get ready for the wildest dream of your life. But remember to set an alarm. 4 hours max. Otherwise, you'll never wake up. You can do a lot with this, trust me. Even share the dream. But set an alarm. You there? Deleted has deleted their account. It couldn't be. From what my older brother had told us about his private life, Seth had been big into the music scene. Hence the computer desk that looked like a spaceship motherboard. And the fancy headphones. I smiled as I ran my fingers over them. Just the idea of me touching his headphones would have made Seth angry enough to snap out of his coma right away. If this was a normal coma. And I was pretty sure it wasn't. The text on Seth's screen read like some dumb urban legend, but I'd never know for sure unless I listened for myself. I set an alarm for 20 minutes, took a deep breath, and hit play. Laying on Seth's bed with the blue screensaver light making weird patterns on the ceiling made me feel like I was floating somewhere deep underwater, and the hypnotic beat made it easy to just drift off. That smell. Buff tile, fountain chlorine, roasting food court pretzels. You're in a mall. But where is everybody? Wait, it's after hours. There's only blackness on the other side of the skylights. The shops are dark or gated shut. So why do those scents still linger in the air? Why are those pink and blue neon lights still glowing, even though all the other lights are off? Why does it feel like you aren't alone in this empty place? There's music playing too. A slushy, smooth jazz soundtrack you're sure you've heard somewhere before. Perfect music for shopping. Or for being hunted through dark, polished hallways for all eternity. You're not sure where that last thought came from. Maybe it's just the gloom. But you can't see the end of the mall in any direction. Like the music, the names of the stores are familiar and unsettling at the same time. Penclairs, Shock Topic, Eclairs, KD Nickel, Rears, The fountains and the music tinkle merrily on, and you too are feeling just swell, actually. Not too hot or too cold, no dry throat or need to urinate. All the same, you're painfully aware of your five senses and your own mortality. You don't doubt that if you die here, you'll never wake from this dream. Just like Seth. You get moving. You can't stand in one place forever, after all. Time is of the essence, although you can't quite remember why. And besides, you get the feeling you shouldn't linger too long in one place. That creeping feeling on the back of your neck. You turn your head a bit and see them. 5 figures watching you from inside a women's clothing store. The neon light glints on their unblinking eyes, but they're only mannequins. Probably. The same plastic plants, the same fake Greek statues. You rest for a moment on a bench. You're not tired or hungry, even though you've been walking for what feels like forever. You made so many turns trying to find your way out of here that you no longer have any idea where you started. Up ahead, whirring, beeping, flashing lights. An arcade. But who turned the machines on? And hadn't you passed an arcade before? You remember stuffed animals staring out of a claw machine with ravenous expressions. You remember how you looked away quickly, afraid that if you stared too long, they'd start to move. Silly, you think. But the mall seems to be waking up to your presence. The fluorescents overhead flicker on and off at random. Occasionally you see open stores, gates lifted, lights on, inviting you in to browse through clothing and music that haven't been in style for over 20 years. Somehow, it would feel like stepping into an open mouth. You avoid those most of all. Truth is, you're not sure how much longer you can keep this up. Your senses are starting to play tricks on you, like the echo of running footsteps on the upper level of the mall. Or that shadow, like a 2-story tall, emaciated entity is stooping over the children's play area. How long have you been lost here for? Days? Weeks? The black skylights offer no reply. Just when you're beginning to wonder if you'll escape with your sanity, one of the trash cans starts whispering to you. It calls you by your name. How long has it been since you've heard anything other than your own footsteps, that music, or the eerie noises of the mall? A human voice seems out of place. Dangerous. It calls out to you again, louder, and you begin to fear the sound will attract something too horrible to imagine. You move closer and closer to the whispering trash can. You shush it, but it just starts talking. Damn it, it's me, Seth. Would you listen? If they find us, we're done for. You hear something else now. A vague beeping at the back of your consciousness, louder and louder with every second. A familiar figure clambers out of the trash can where it was hiding. Behind you, you feel the gaunt presence in the play area turning its attention toward you. Seth heaves himself out of the trash can, walks up to you, and squeezes your hand before he flees. So hard it hurts. The thing behind you swallows the light as it approaches. And then the beeping becomes so loud it consumes you. The mall, everything, in a flash of white light. Those are the notes I took as soon as I woke up. I knew I only had a few moments before the memories faded. In fact, I was so caught up in jotting them down, I didn't even think about the pain in my palm until after I'd finished. I ran my fingers over the bleeding cuts from my unconscious brother's fingernails, and knew I had to go back. It wasn't hard to find time alone with my comatose older brother Seth. My parents seemed both surprised and relieved that I'd stepped up. The only challenge was making sure that the night shift nurses didn't catch on to my mad scientist setup. A set of headphones for each of us, plugged into the laptop where the cursed playlist was stored. At first, I tried playing the music for Seth only, with alarms set for different times. The only sounds in the dark hospital room were beeping machines, my brother's shallow breathing, and the faint, eerie rhythms of the playlist. At any moment, Seth might sit up in bed, pale, shrieking, incoherent, and I couldn't tell if I was excited or terrified by the prospect. I felt the same way about diving back into the playlist myself. Strangely enough, I couldn't fall asleep during the track I'd played before, no matter how hard I tried. It was like the instinctive animal part of my brain knew what falling asleep to this music might mean, and fought it as hard as possible. I'd kept myself awake for almost a full day to make dozing easier, but it was still a few tracks later when I finally nodded off. You've been here before. But where is here exactly? A lobby? Or rather, a blend of them. There's the potted plants, carpet squares, and tabletop children's toys of a dentist's office, but also the luggage trolley and reception desk of a hotel. There's a bunch of those business award plaques, but they're all blank, nameless. And of course, there's the background music. Of course, no one is here. No one that you can see. Instead of darkness outside, there's light. The blinding sun of a summer afternoon. You can only make out vague shadows beyond the glass doors and windows, which are locked, of course. Walking past the empty reception desk, you feel like you're breaking some kind of rule. In front of you, 2 brass elevators. To your right, an office door labeled manager. To your left, a hotel hallway lined with rooms. The lights are off, except for glowing red exit signs. The rattle of an ice machine somewhere puts you on edge, and the smell of chlorine burns your nostrils. Something's dripping down there, and a yellow, caution, wet floor warning blocks your path. That's right. Now you remember this place. A family trip, mid-90s. You and Seth were allowed to go to the pool alone for the first time. You got lost and couldn't find your hotel room. Did you ever find your way back? Or have you always been here, wandering these endless, frigid halls? The pool room is dark, but the water is lit from below, and you feel drawn towards its aquamarine depths. You hear a splash. You realize suddenly that, no, you don't really want to know what's at the bottom of that pool. You back away quickly, but not quick enough. You slip on the wet floor, and you feel yourself sliding impossibly toward the aquamarine water. You claw at the slick tile, scramble with your feet. No use. It's like the horizontal floor has become a vertical slope. Your fingers wrap around the door jamb, and you hold tight as though you were dangling above an abyss. And when you turn around, you see a lightless tunnel at the far end of the pool. It reminds you of a carnival ride. And sure enough, you see a few abandoned-looking rafts bobbing inside of it. Another splash. Is something moving in there? Or is it just the tunnel, licking its hungry lips? Waiting for you to let go. To keep sliding until you disappear into that inviting aquamarine water. You use the door frame to pull yourself back up. Gravity returns to normal. Somewhere, an ice machine rattles, and the music plays on. You go back to the elevators, trying not to look behind you. A brass door slides open, like it was waiting for you. The sound of conversation echoes from the poolside hallway, the end of a party. Raucous laughter and drunken adults, running children's feet. But how could so many people have fit into one tiny hotel room? What were they doing in there? Another peal of laughter. You don't want to know. Whatever's coming, you'd prefer not to share a ride with it. You slip into the elevator and jam the door close button until you're shut inside a brass cocoon that slowly rises. Although you can't remember choosing a floor. Wall lamps, carpet, closed doors. You can't see an end to the hallway in front of you. The random numbers and letters on the doors change when you're not looking, 86D becomes 81911. C3 becomes... Wait. 347A. That was your room back then. If you close your eyes tight and really, really focus, you're standing in front of it now. As you reach out for the handle, the door creaks open. Behind you, the elevator. You have mere seconds to avoid whatever's inside. You make a choice. The room seems empty at first, and you're grateful for the solidity of the door behind you. Thick curtains, wall unit blowing cold air, paisley bedspreads, and anonymous furniture. The television is on. People on water skis with two bright smiles, advertising a suntan lotion you half remember. You don't see the figure pressed against the wall until it's too late. "You made it," Seth gasps. "He came back." Apart from the fact that he's standing, your older brother looks the same. His eyes, though, tell a different story. A story of weeks, maybe months, spent wandering these endless halls and avoiding their inhabitants. Now that you're together, the danger seems doubled. Your eyes dart nervously around the ceiling. "I set an alarm," you say. "If we're together when it goes off." "An alarm gets you out of here," Seth sighs. "When here is ready to let you go. Not before. Haven't you noticed that time works differently in this place?" "You mean..." You stammer. There's a knock at the door. It starts faint, but gets louder and louder until you see dust rattling from the hinges. You have a feeling that it's not going to stop until it breaks down the door. "Come on," Seth whispers. "This way." Your older brother leads you into the bathroom. It has a toilet, a shower, and a tile corridor extending impossibly far into the distance. You recognize it right away. The hallway to your high school shower room. "Our memories change things here. It's our only way to fight back." Just like with the door, you realize. Floor-to-ceiling, grimy yellow tile. Dim lights. The smell of soap and spray-on deodorant. Somewhere, a shower is running, and in places, the slippery floor seems almost misty. Occasionally, you glimpse lockers or bathroom stalls, but each time, Seth whisks you away, deeper into the maze. "When you start to see signs of life, that's this place trying to trap you," Seth gasps. "I think that's its goal. It wants to trap consciousness here, to feed off of it, forever." You're not sure why he's so tired until... "I can't drag much more out of this memory. I need you to take over. Remember a way out of here." That's what I was trying to do when rough hands shook me awake. "Hey," the nurse snapped. "What's all this?" I realized with horror that she'd taken the headphones off of Seth. "I don't know what all this is," she went on, "or why you're all wet, but in the future, you need to clear things like this with us first. For all you know, this stuff you set up could be interfering with your brother's equipment." I was too shocked and disappointed to speak. I had been so close to freeing Seth. All I could do was take my notes and plan out my next move. Because it seems like every time I go back for my brother, the playlist gets more dangerous. I knew I'd only have one more shot at saving my brother. After the nurses caught me, they forbid me from ever being alone with him. Back at home, I thought up ways to sneak back into the hospital, each more ridiculous than the last. I was too young to look like a doctor or a nurse, but not a member of the cooking or cleaning staff. From the parking lot, I observed their schedules, their uniforms, how they wore their badges, everything. I had to visit a lot of workwear stores before I got the look right. But 2 days later, I felt like I was ready. I walked up to the loading dock while they were rolling out the dumpsters. A sweaty and disgusting job that required complete attention. I took the service elevator to my brother's floor, made it to his room, and barred the door with a chair. It wasn't easy to fall asleep with my heart thundering and my nerves on edge. but I slowly managed to calm myself down. I turned out the lights, closed the blinds, put headphones on my brother and myself, then prepared for what would come next. A clanging, echoing, industrial sound. A dark interior space. Chilly and seemingly endless. Patches of evening light that pour through gaps in the ceiling reveal filthy, cracked concrete, dead weeds, enormous, rusty doors. The abandoned warehouse where you and Seth played, back in the old neighborhood, back before his accident. You focus all of your memory, all of your imagination on finding your brother. You heave one of the sliding doors open. It makes a horrific shriek that echoes away into the distance. But there's only darkness on the other side. Behind you, movement. A shadow passes through patches of light. You're not sure whether you should run towards it or away from it. But what choice is there? It could be Seth. You follow it through the narrow gap of another half-open door, and it stops, just beyond the reach of the light. "Seth!" you cry, grabbing your brother's hand and spinning him around. From its wig to its clothes, the mannequin looks just like your brother. There's a crude expression of fear painted on its face with makeup, and a thick line of lipstick across its neck to make it look like its throat had been slit. You've been going about this all wrong. You need to find the memory first, then remember your brother's place in it. A dusty wind blows toward you from the darkness of the warehouse, bringing with it the reek of rotting meat and the scraping sound of metal being dragged across concrete. You haven't got much time. On the far side of a heap of rebar and rubble, another door. You sprint to it, trying to think of somewhere safe, familiar, where you can find your brother before something else finds you. You remember bring your kid to work day in your father's office, playing with doodads on his desk, wandering through the cubicles, reading picture books in the oversized chairs. That was a happy memory for both of you. Grabbing the door handle, you focus all of your senses on it. The rough texture of the gray carpet, that office smell, a weird blend of cheap coffee, hot plastic, and eraser dust, clacking keyboards, muted water cooler conversations, staticky classic rock, and intercom announcements. You slide open the abandoned factory door. Your father's corporate office waits on the other side. You step through, leaving a solid cubicle wall where the factory door had been. You remember that Seth used to hide behind the fake fern beside the receptionist desk. Sure enough. Why here of all places? Your brother climbs out from behind the plastic plant. 3 long, claw-shaped gashes extend down his left arm. He notices you staring. Don't ask. He leans his head against the wall, sighs. I'm sorry I dragged you into this, little bro. When I first started falling asleep to this playlist, I realized that I could revisit the days before the accident, back when I was actually happy. I could walk through those memories with my own 2 feet, even if some things felt off. The more time I spent here, the harder it got to go back. I started smoking more, drinking more. It wasn't long before I forgot to set an alarm. By the time I realized what this place really was, it was too late. My endless dream was an endless nightmare. Until you came for me. Thump. It's as loud and heavy as a giant's footstep. Suddenly, the warbling, scratchy office music is replaced by something shrieking and industrial, like if a hard drive could scream. Shit. This is why I didn't understand why you chose this memory. You remember Mr. Reynolds? You mean Dad's creepy boss? Kevin Reynolds. You remember how much he scared you as a child. The way his lips smiled, but his eyes didn't. The way he stood too close, always looking for an excuse to pat or squeeze or touch. The cruel way he lorded over his employees. Maybe the past wasn't so perfect after all. Right. Seth starts leading you away through the maze of cubicles. The footsteps are joined by heavy, labored breathing, just like Mr. Reynolds. This place has a way of magnifying your fears. It turns them into something deadly. As if that bastard weren't dangerous enough already. What? I guess they didn't tell you. You were probably too young. Kevin Reynolds was arrested for murder. They, found a dead kid in his trunk, little bro. He only ever got caught because he attached some of his snuff pictures to a company email. You look over your shoulder and see an enormous shadow turning the corner. A figure as large and imposing to you now as Kevin Reynolds had been when you were a child. Seth yanks you into a cubicle. You both get on your hands and knees and crawl underneath the office furniture. There's only a rolling chair between you and Mr. Reynolds. From your hiding spot beneath the desk, you see fingers, each as wide as your forearm, curling around the top of the cubicle. A thing that looks almost like Mr. Reynolds peers over, searching, its beady eyes like buttons in the fleshy mass of its face. The thing continues stalking through the office, but it will definitely be back. You crawl out towards the corridor and see an enormous brown leather shoe disappear around the corner. The door is too far away, and even if it wasn't, you're both too on edge to remember a way out of this. Seth starts for the door. Wait, you hiss. Something has just occurred to you. What year did Reynolds get busted? 98, I think. Spring. Dad had just got promoted and we took a family vacation right after. You look at the cartoon calendar on the cubicle wall. April 27th, 1998. You wonder if Kevin Reynolds sent out that email by accident, or if it was a warning from somewhere else. A place like this. We've got to get to his office somehow. What? Seth blurts. Why? We gotta get out of here. The footsteps stop. You've been heard. Just trust me. You grab Seth's hand and drag him deeper into the fluorescent depths of the office. The Reynolds thing thunders toward you, at a pace that should be impossible for its size. You remember his office. Thick, faux wood door. Manager on a brass plaque. It's unlocked. Seth locks the door and braces it with everything he can, while you squiggle the mouse on Reynolds' Windows 95 computer. Outside, he's rattling the handle, shrieking, scratching, and slamming at the door. You find the files, attach them, CC the entire company, hit send. The splintering wood won't hold much longer now. Beneath the violent barrage, another sound grows, beeping and buzzing. You grab Seth and hold on tight. And you both wake up. Together. In the hospital room. Seth and I wrote these notes after the reunion with our family and the doctor's tests finally came to an end. To keep it simple, we explained that I just played some of his favorite music, which had led him back to himself. So little is understood about comas that the doctors accepted it without question. I think they were just happy to see him recover. I don't know if finding that memory and sending those files was the point all along. I don't know if all the steps in our lives led us here, just for that purpose. Or if the Phantom playlist was just one of those inexplicable things between sleeping and waking. I'm just glad to be living in the present, with my older brother by my side. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward. And if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.